It was well past midnight in Memphis, and the only light in the house came from the overhead lamp above the kitchen table. I was there, still in my work clothes, buried beneath stacks of overdue invoices and crumpled receipts. I had half a bottle of gas station coffee left and a migraine inching its way behind my right eye, the kind of headache that made everything feel slower, heavier. Laura had gone to bed hours earlier, or so I thought. I remember glancing at the clock on the microwave, 1:56 a.m., and thinking that if I could just knock out the final few items on my checklist, I'd at least be able to sleep without that familiar weight of guilt pressing on my chest. We were behind on bills again, mostly because of the roof repair, but I didn't want to dip into savings, not unless we absolutely had to. That money was supposed to go toward a vacation, or at least that's what we used to say. I stood up to stretch, collecting a pile of old receipts and sticky notes to toss. As I crossed the room toward the trash can, I passed the laundry basket Laura kept by the mudroom door. That's when I saw it. A shirt. It was half buried beneath a few towels and a workout tank top. But even in the dim light, I could tell it didn't belong to me. I bent down and pulled it free. A crisp pale blue dress shirt. Slim cut. Fine stitching. A label I didn't recognize, but I could tell it was expensive. Nothing off the rack from a department store. It was the kind of shirt you dry cleaned and hung carefully in the closet. The fabric felt soft, almost buttery between my fingers, and when I brought it closer, a distinct smell hit me. Cologne. Not mine. I don't wear anything that strong. Never have. This scent was bold, musky, foreign. The kind of thing you'd expect to smell walking past a corner booth at a steakhouse where two executives clink glasses over rare ribeyes. I stood there for a moment, holding the shirt like it might whisper the truth if I stared long enough. My first thought, the rational one, told me it must be a mistake. Maybe a friend left it behind. Maybe it was a dry cleaning mix-up, just like the time our neighbor's scarf ended up in Laura's gym bag. But even as that thought formed, I felt a strange hollowness in my stomach, because we hadn't taken anything to the dry cleaner in weeks. Just then, a buzz, short and sharp, echoed from the kitchen counter. Laura's phone, face up this time, vibrated against the granite. The screen lit up. I shouldn't have looked. I know that, but I did. It was a text message from a number not saved in her contacts. Thanks again for a wonderful evening. You're amazing. Sleep tight, Dizzy. I froze. Wonderful evening? I tried to breathe through the tightness that started in my chest. It felt like my body had forgotten how lungs were supposed to work. My hands were still damp from folding laundry earlier, and I could feel the shirt getting crumpled in my grip. There was a sound behind me, soft footsteps on hardwood. Jason! Laura's voice broke the silence like a needle through fabric. I turned around. She stood at the hallway entrance, wrapped in one of my old college hoodies, hair pulled back messily, eyes squinting from the kitchen light. She saw me holding the shirt, then saw her phone screen glowing. In an instant, her expression changed. "Oh," she said casually, like she just noticed the weather changed outside. "That's just from a colleague. We had a long meeting tonight. Dinner ran late." I didn't say anything, just looked at her. "And the shirt?" I asked, lifting it slightly. She shrugged. "Dry cleaner must have mixed something up. I dropped off your stuff on Monday. Remember?" I didn't remember, and even if she had, this shirt wasn't my size. It was too narrow in the chest, too long in the sleeves. I wasn't imagining that. "Are you sure?" I asked. Her tone shifted. "Jason, come on. You're really going to stand there and interrogate me over a shirt and a harmless text?" I didn't like the way she said interrogate. Like I was a cop in some crime show trying to corner her. Like I was being ridiculous. She walked past me, grabbed her phone, and turned its screen down before tucking it into the pocket of her hoodie. "I'm exhausted," she said, voice now syrupy sweet, as if offering a peace treaty. "Can we not do this right now?" I stood frozen. She gave me a look, the one she used when I forgot to take the trash out or left dishes in the sink, and added, "You've been so paranoid lately. It's starting to get a little old." There it was, the deflection, the pivot from the actual concern to how I was acting. I'd seen this move before, not from her, but from clients at work when they were trying to bury mistakes. They'd change the subject, cast doubt, twist the narrative. It's not paranoia, I said, though my voice was quieter than I meant. Laura rolled her eyes and walked toward the fridge. She opened it, grabbed a bottle of water, and leaned against the counter. Like nothing had happened. Like we were going to just move on and pretend the last 5 minutes didn't exist. I watched her take a sip, then ask, almost like a throwaway line, "Did you finish the budget stuff for the roof?" I stared at her. She wanted to change the subject. She wanted me to drop it. But I couldn't. Not entirely. Instead, I nodded slowly. "Yeah, almost done." "Good," she said, not looking at me. "Let's talk more about it in the morning." Then she walked out of the room, the hoodie sleeves covering her hands as she cradled the water bottle to her chest. I listened to her footsteps vanish down the hallway, then heard the soft click of our bedroom door closing. I remained where I stood, still holding that damn shirt, until the clock on the microwave blinked to 2:11 a.m. I wish I could say I had confronted her right then, demanded the truth, but I didn't. I just stood there, hands shaking, mind racing. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was being paranoid. But if that were true, why did the pit in my stomach keep getting deeper? I walked back to the table, placed the shirt down gently, and sat in silence. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was at home. After that night, something shifted in me. I didn't say anything to Laura about the shirt or the message the next morning. She was already gone by the time I woke up, claimed she had an early team call, left a sticky note on the fridge about needing almond milk and that she'd make it up to me with takeout that night. But I wasn't thinking about almond milk. I wasn't thinking about food at all. I was thinking about that shirt, that message, that scent. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, not to let paranoia drive the story. But the thing about suspicion is that once it starts growing, it doesn't stop. It's like mold. It starts in the dark, in a quiet corner of your mind, and then before you know it, it's everywhere, touching everything, spoiling what used to feel clean. And once it got in my head, I started seeing things I hadn't noticed before. For example, Laura had been staying late at work a lot lately. She said it was project season, big client deals coming through, and everyone was on overtime. I'd believed her at first, but now I started watching the clock every night. 10 p.m. came and went, then 11, sometimes midnight, and when she did come home, she moved around the house like a guest. Quiet, deliberate, phone always in hand. And her phone, that thing became her second skin. She never left it unattended. At dinner, it sat face down. In bed, it rested beneath her pillow or buried in her hoodie pocket. She used to scroll openly, share memes with me, send me dumb videos while we sat next to each other on the couch. That version of her was gone. Now everything about her screen time was hidden, guarded. One morning, I saw her standing in the bathroom, typing furiously on her phone with her back turned to the mirror. She didn't know I'd woken up early. When I walked in, she jumped, physically startled. "Jesus, Jason," she said, tucking the phone away. "You scared me. Didn't mean to. Just need to pee." She forced a laugh. "Maybe wear a bell next time." I smiled weakly and said nothing. But the way her shoulders tensed, that wasn't normal. Not for her. Not for us. Later that same day, I noticed her phone had a new lock screen. Password. One I didn't know. When I asked her about it, half joking, trying not to seem like I was pressing, she shrugged. "Work policy. IT wants everyone to have better security." Sounded reasonable, but my gut said otherwise. On Saturday, she went out for yoga, something she'd picked up a few months back, apparently. Said it helped with stress. Normally, she'd be gone for about an hour or so. That weekend, she was gone nearly 3. Said she stopped for coffee after. Then lunch. With friends. But she didn't bring anything back. No yoga mat. No smoothie. No gym smell. No sweat. Her bag smelled like cologne. Not mine. Not the shirts either. Something different. Sharper. Cleaner. I kept my mouth shut, but my brain was already on overdrive. Running laps. I checked our shared bank account that night, just out of curiosity. What I found didn't scream infidelity, but it whispered something else. Secrecy. There were cash withdrawals. Lots of them. Small amounts at first, 20 here, 40 there. But lately, she'd pulled out over $300 in the past 2 weeks. All marked as ATM visits, all outside our neighborhood. I asked her about it gently over dinner. She said it was for tips and splitting tabs at group events. Said it was easier than Venmo because not everyone uses apps. She always had an answer now. Too quick. Too neat. And then I started remembering things I'd brushed off months ago. Like the work trip she took to Atlanta back in April. She came home with barely any photos. No stories. She said it was exhausting. Just a blur of presentations and long dinners. But when I offered to pick her up from the airport that night, she insisted on taking a cab. Said I shouldn't have to drive that far. I thought she was being considerate. Now I wasn't so sure. Then there was the Messenger app. One I hadn't recognized before. I spotted it on her tablet by accident. She'd left it charging in the living room while she showered. The icon was unfamiliar, and when I tapped it open, it asked for a password. That wasn't the strange part. The strange part was that the app had been freshly installed, just a few days ago. But the usage time was hours long. When I asked her if she'd downloaded something new, she smiled and said, "Oh, that? Just a meditation app. Background noise for sleep." I nodded, but I knew I hadn't seen any meditation app like that. One night, while she was brushing her teeth, I checked again. The app was gone. Deleted. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just hiding things. She was erasing them. Like digital breadcrumbs she didn't want me to follow. And maybe I wouldn't have thought much of it. Maybe I would have kept trying to rationalize. If not for the night I walked past the guest bathroom and heard her talking. Not on the phone. Not on speaker. Just her voice, soft and quick. It wasn't a conversation. It sounded more like a voice message. She said something like, "I miss you already," then paused. I kept walking, trying to pretend I hadn't heard a word. But every step down the hallway felt heavier than the last. After that, I started keeping a list. Not on paper, just in my head. Every lie, every deflection, every detail that didn't add up. The list got longer every day, and the more I noticed, the more I remembered. The smiles that didn't reach her eyes. The way she used to grab my hand at parties and hadn't done it in months. The scent of someone else lingering on her skin when we hugged. Her excuses for why we hadn't been in *mate lately. Always tired, always stressed, always tomorrow. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I hadn't been attentive. Maybe I'd gotten too focused on work, or too careless about showing appreciation. But no matter how much I tried to take the blame, the evidence kept piling up. This wasn't just a rough patch. It wasn't about almond milk or late-night emails or silent phones. It was something else. Something deeper. I wanted to confront her. God, I wanted to scream and demand the truth. But every time I got close, she'd flip the script. Change the subject. Make me feel like the villain for even asking. "You don't trust me anymore?" she said one night, tears welling up. "Why are you doing this?" She looked genuinely hurt. But I couldn't tell if it was guilt or performance. Maybe both. I didn't answer her. I just said I was tired. And I was. Tired of pretending everything was fine. Tired of doubting myself. Tired of living with someone who felt more like a stranger than a partner. At some point, the silence between us became louder than words. We started sitting in separate rooms more often. She scrolled her phone while I pretended to watch TV. Conversations were short, functional, polite, like roommates sharing a space they didn't choose. I still hadn't found anything concrete. Nothing definitive. No name. No smoking *N. Just shadows and patterns and silences. But I knew. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down I already did. Something was broken between us. And she was the one who broke it. It all came to a head one weekend in Nashville. Laura had insisted we attend a get-together hosted by one of her college friends. Someone I barely knew but had heard about in passing over the years. Apparently, they'd reconnected through a group chat. It was supposed to be a laid-back thing. Food, drinks, music, old friends catching up. She sold it like it was good for both of us. A little fun. she said. Something normal. I didn't argue. Truthfully, I was too tired to argue by that point. Tired of being the suspicious husband. Tired of staring at her across the dinner table, wondering who she really was. I went because I wanted to see her in a different setting. Outside our house, around people she trusted. I needed to see who she was when she didn't think I was watching. The party was held in a spacious suburban home in East Nashville. There were about 20 people when we arrived, most of them mingling near the kitchen island or out back around a fire pit. Laura seemed instantly at ease. She slipped right into conversations, laughing with ease, hugging people I'd never met. For a while, I just watched. She looked radiant, hair curled just right, subtle makeup, the kind of effort she hadn't made around me in months. She touched her neck a lot that night, a nervous tic she used to have when we were first dating. But this time, it wasn't nervousness. It was intentional, a display. I didn't know who it was for, but it wasn't me. I nursed a beer and drifted from group to group, making small talk. People were friendly enough. A few recognized my name, asked about work, asked if Laura and I were thinking about kids anytime soon. I gave vague answers, smiled politely. All the while, my eyes stayed on her. At one point, I saw her talking to a woman by the wine cart, her phone in hand. She glanced down as the screen lit up. I don't know why I was looking right then, but I caught it. A name flashed across the screen. Ethan. I'd seen the name before, months ago, in the context of her office holiday planning thread. She'd mentioned him once, said he was the new marketing director. Mid-30s, smart, kinda intense, she'd said. I remember her laughing about how he always showed up overdressed, even on casual Fridays. And yet now, his name sat there on her lock screen like a warning siren. The message preview was just long enough to catch. I miss. Then it cut off. She noticed me watching. Her hand moved quickly, flipping the phone screen down and slipping it into her back pocket. I didn't say anything, not then. She smiled at me from across the room, forced, small, then turned back to her conversation. But I felt it, in my chest. The final click of a lock I'd been turning for months. That was the moment I knew. Later that night, after most of the guests had filtered out to the fire pit or the front porch, I stood in the kitchen chatting with our host, a woman named Dana. She was friendly, sharp, the kind of person who missed nothing. She sipped white wine and asked me how long Laura and I had been married. 7 years, I said. She nodded. That's impressive. You two seem solid. I didn't respond. I just gave a small smile. Then, as casually as if she were commenting on the weather, Dana added, Saw Laura a few weeks back at Hillman's, actually. That little bar on 11th. She was with someone. I figured it was you at first, but then I realized. No, definitely wasn't. My spine straightened. Wasn't me, I said. Dana tilted her head, maybe realizing she'd said too much. Oh, maybe it was a work thing. She say anything to you? She didn't see me, Dana said. They were in one of the back booths. Real cozy. His arm was around her at one point. But hey, could have been totally innocent, right? She said it with the kind of smile people wear when they know they've opened a door you can't close. I managed a polite nod, then excused myself to the restroom. But I didn't go. I stepped out onto the porch, heart pounding. So it was him, Ethan. I could feel my heartbeat in my jaw. Laura was inside, probably mid-laugh, probably telling some story about a conference she never actually went to. And I stood outside, realizing the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the months I'd spent convincing myself I was crazy. I wasn't. I was right. I stayed outside for a long time, leaning against the porch railing while strangers smoked and laughed around me. I heard music start up in the living room. Someone put on a playlist full of throwback hits. Laura loved throwbacks. I'd forgotten that. I'd forgotten a lot of things. When I finally walked back inside, I saw her dancing. Not wild, not showy. Just her and a few others, singing along, glass in hand. She moved like someone without a single worry. Like she'd already decided I didn't matter anymore. And maybe she had. She came over to me later when people were saying their goodbyes. You okay? She asked. touching my arm. Fine, I said. You're being quiet. Just tired. Long week, she said, nodding like she understood. Let's head out in a few? Sure. In the car, she talked about Dana's new backsplash. About someone's dog wearing a birthday hat. She made a joke about how much wine she'd had. I nodded when I needed to, but all I heard in my head was that message, I miss. She didn't know I'd seen it, and I didn't tell her. Not yet. Instead, I started making a plan. That week, I made a point to come home early a few nights, unannounced. She wasn't thrilled. One night, she called to tell me her team dinner was running long. I said I was outside her office building, and she went silent. Then said, "Oh, we moved to a place down the street." "Which one?" She hung up. When she got home later, she acted like nothing happened. Said her phone died. Said she Ubered. Her stories had layers now. Backdoors. Another night, I went into our shared desktop computer. Laura never used it anymore. She was always on her phone or laptop. But the desktop still had an old synced Google account. Something she probably forgot. I opened it. Scrolled through the Recent Devices tab. Saw a login from a hotel's Wi-Fi. Cross-referenced the date. It was the same weekend she'd gone camping with friends. And the hotel? It was in town. 10 minutes from our house. I didn't ask her about it. What was the point? She'd just find a way to make me the problem again. Say I was obsessed. Controlling. That I was overthinking everything. But I wasn't thinking anymore. I was watching. Listening. Recording in my head. I needed more than gut feelings. I needed proof. So, I bought a cheap second phone and a SIM card. Set up a new account. Added Ethan's number. I'd found it in our cell bills call log. Created a decoy contact. Kim, HR. Then I waited. That Thursday night, just past 9 p.m. I saw a call go through. 15 minutes. I recorded the call time. Took **TS. Then, finally, I did the thing I swore I never would. I followed her. Friday morning. She left for yoga. I left 5 minutes after. She didn't go to the studio. She went to an apartment complex off Baxter Road. Parked in a visitor spot. Walked straight to Building 3A. I waited 30 minutes. Then I drove home. I didn't need to see anything else. It was over. I didn't say anything the next morning. Laura moved through the kitchen like she always did. Hair pulled up, coffee mug in hand, scrolling through her phone with one thumb. She was humming some tune from the night before, barefoot, wrapped in the oversized gray sweater she liked to steal from my side of the closet. I watched her from across the room and felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, just a strange, clean emptiness. She looked up at me. "You want eggs?" I shook my head. "Not hungry." She shrugged and went back to scrolling. Like we were still living in the same marriage. Like I hadn't followed her car to another man's apartment the morning before. Like the weight I'd carried for months hadn't finally turned into something sharp and irreversible. That day, I called my friend Andrew. Someone I'd known since high school. The kind of friend who didn't ask too many questions unless you needed him to. He had a small rental property about 20 minutes outside the city. A one-bedroom place behind a workshop he used as a weekend auto garage. "Furnished?" I asked. "Not much," he said. "Couch, bed, coffee maker. Perfect." He paused for a second. "You okay?" "Not really." But I thanked him. Told him I needed it for a while. He didn't press. I waited until Laura left for work, then started moving things in. I didn't pack boxes. That would have looked suspicious. Instead, I took what I needed in slow, steady pieces. A few changes of clothes. My passport. A second toothbrush. My laptop, external hard drive, charger. I took our marriage license, tucked it into a manila folder, and slid it under the passenger seat of my car. Over the next 2 weeks, I kept it quiet. She was too distracted to notice. Her meetings grew more frequent. Her time in the shower got longer. She'd change her lock screen photo twice a week now. Once it was a picture of a sunset that wasn't from any trip we'd ever taken. Another time it was just a quote. "You owe it to yourself to grow." She was preparing for a different life, even if she wasn't ready to admit it. So was I. I set up a separate bank account at a credit union 2 towns over. Not much, just enough to move my direct deposit from work. I told Laura it was part of a retirement strategy, something a colleague had suggested. She nodded, didn't ask questions. I think part of her was relieved. One less thing she had to manage. One more inch of distance between us. I started seeing a lawyer, too. Quietly. Her name was Melissa Ray. Sharp. No nonsense. Highly recommended. She was blunt from our first meeting. If you want to protect yourself, you need documentation, she said. Start keeping records. Dates, locations, texts. Anything that shows a pattern. I have some of that already, I told her. She looked me over, eyes steady. This your first time dealing with betrayal? Yeah. You're handling it well. I don't feel like I am. You are, she said. Most people come in here swinging. That's not how you win. I liked her immediately. She helped me open a secure folder online, something encrypted. I uploaded the **TS, the timestamps, the call logs. She said it would help if things got ugly. Especially since Laura had no idea I'd been building a quiet wall around myself for weeks. And that was the key. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. I wanted distance. I wanted peace. One night, Laura came home with a bag from her favorite sushi place. My favorite order was inside. Thought we could have a chill night, she said. Maybe catch up on that show we used to watch? Used to. I nodded. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, chopsticks clicking between bites. On screen, characters argued about some plot I no longer cared about. Beside me, Laura laughed at the right moments, smiled when I looked her way, sipped wine like nothing was wrong. Halfway through the episode, she leaned her head against my shoulder. I didn't flinch. It was strange. Her weight felt both familiar and foreign, like muscle memory from another life. Later that night, as we lay in bed, she reached for my hand. I feel like we've been off, she whispered. I didn't reply. I want to work on us, she said, voice smaller now. I think I just got distracted. You know? I looked at the ceiling. Distracted? I don't know. Everything's been so busy. I've been in my head a lot. I turned my head slightly to look at her. Anything you want to tell me? She hesitated, then smiled. Just that I miss us. I didn't say anything. She didn't push. But I lay there for hours, listening to her breathe, wondering how someone could lie so easily while holding your hand. The next day, I finished moving the last of my essentials into the apartment. Andrew had left a note on the counter with a 6-pack of beer and a key. Welcome to your comeback tour. I laughed out loud. First real laugh I'd had in weeks. I stood in the small living room, looking around. The walls were bare. The furniture was old. But the space felt honest. It was mine. Just mine. I stayed there that night. Didn't tell Laura. I left my phone in the kitchen and took a walk around the block. The sky was dark, the air cool, the smell of damp grass rising from every lawn. No sounds but crickets and the distant hum of a train. I felt light, not happy, not free, not yet, but light. Laura texted a few times that night. Where are you? Everything okay? Then finally, I made dinner. It's getting cold. I didn't reply. Let her feel it, the first shift, the first absence. She was so used to me being predictable, to me coming home, no matter how quiet I'd gotten. That night was the first time she'd noticed the gap she'd carved between us. And I wasn't planning on filling it anymore. The next few days were careful. I played my part. Came home when needed. Smiled when asked. Slept in the guest room, claiming I had a cough. She didn't push. I think part of her wanted to believe the narrative she'd built. That things were just off. That we were in a rut, that I was withdrawn because of work or stress or whatever excuse made her feel less guilty. Let her believe that. The truth was coming. I just wasn't going to hand it to her on a silver platter. I wanted her to feel the slow unraveling. The same kind I'd been feeling for months. Because sometimes, silence is louder than confrontation. Sometimes, leaving starts before you walk out the door. It didn't take long for her to notice she was losing her grip. At first, Laura played it subtle. She adjusted her tone, softened her expressions, tried a little harder in the kitchen. She stopped mentioning work dinners, stopped putting her phone face down every time she set it down. Once, she even left it charging on the counter, unlocked. It was bait. I didn't touch it. She was testing to see if I'd bite, if I was still watching her. I wasn't watching anymore. I was already gone. But what she didn't realize was that I'd spent weeks preparing for this part. This was the phase where she'd pivot from deception to damage control. I'd seen it coming, and still it caught me off guard. It began with a phone call to her mother. I came home one evening and overheard her in the hallway, pacing with her AirPods in. Her voice was hushed but urgent, lined with emotion. She didn't hear me come in. I stood just out of sight, listening as she recited the version of the story she wanted out in the world. "I don't know what happened," she said. "Jason just changed. He's cold now, distant, like he's not even trying." Pause. "No, nothing specific. Just small things. He barely talks to me. I feel like he's already halfway out the door." Another pause. "I've tried everything, Mom. I've tried cooking for him, I've tried talking, I even offered therapy. He shuts me down." I stepped back before she saw me. She wanted pity. She wanted to plant the seed that I was the problem, that she was the wounded party, the neglected wife whose husband had drifted away for no good reason. It was strategic. She wasn't trying to fix anything between us. She was setting the stage, painting herself as the victim before I had the chance to tell my side. A defensive, preemptive strike. Classic PR move. And considering how charming she could be when she needed to, I knew she'd be convincing. The next week, I noticed the changes in how people spoke to me. Her friend Casey, usually warm and chatty, greeted me with tight smiles and one-word answers at a neighborhood barbecue. My sister texted, asking if everything was okay at home. Even Laura's boss, who once asked me to help him hang a TV in his office, gave me a weird, overlong look at a charity fundraiser, like he was sizing me up for a part in a play I didn't audition for. The narrative was spreading. And Laura? She doubled down. She began posting things online, curated little **TS of our life, filtered through the lens of optimism. A photo of our dinner table captioned, "Trying to slow down and appreciate the little things." A picture of us from 2 years ago, reshared with "No matter what season we're in, I'm grateful." Grateful? For what? I didn't say anything. Let her pretend. But it was clear. She was trying to rewrite the story in real time. Not for me, for the audience. Then came the attempt to win me back directly. One night, she walked into the living room wearing the black dress I bought her 3 Christmases ago. The one she hadn't worn since her friend's wedding in Charleston. Her hair was curled, her lips painted red, the smell of my old cologne faintly trailing her. She sat next to me on the couch, close, too close, and said, "Do you remember the hotel room in Asheville? The one with the fireplace?" I nodded, barely. "We could go back," she said, placing a hand on my leg. "Just you and me. Reset things." I looked at her hand. Perfect nails. Steady grip. It was a performance. And she was good at it. But I wasn't playing that part anymore. "I'm not interested in resets," I said. She pulled her hand back slowly. "Jason, come on. We've both made mistakes." My blood went cold. "Both?" I turned to her, expression flat. "What mistake do you think I've made?" She hesitated only for a second, but it was enough. "I didn't mean it like that," she said, eyes searching. "I just meant, maybe we've both stopped trying. That's all. I want to try again. I'm willing to fight for us." Fight for us? She hadn't fought for us. She'd disappeared, piece by piece, behind passwords and cologne and made-up meetings. Now she wanted to play the redemption arc. I stood and walked into the kitchen without saying a word. Behind me, I heard her voice crack just slightly. "You're not even going to talk to me?" I didn't answer, because talking wouldn't help anymore. She wasn't looking for honesty. She was looking for control, and I wasn't giving it to her. The next morning, I got an email from her therapist. Correction, our therapist. The one we'd stopped seeing a year ago after Laura said the sessions were draining. Now suddenly, she wanted to book a session. A fresh appointment for p.m. Friday. I didn't respond. An hour later, Laura texted me. Please come. I'm trying. I stared at the message for a long time. Trying? No. She was spinning. That Friday, I didn't go to therapy. I drove out to the apartment instead. Picked up a few groceries. Took a nap on the old couch. Later, I walked down the street for coffee and read a book I hadn't touched in months. The sun came through the window just right, and for a few quiet hours, I remembered what peace felt like. When I got home that night, Laura was waiting at the kitchen table. Makeup smudged, eyes red. She didn't speak as I walked in. Just sat there, phone in her lap, staring at nothing. You didn't come, she said. I didn't want to. Silence. Then, do you even want this marriage? I didn't flinch. Do you? She looked away. That was the thing. She never answered questions directly anymore. She just let them hover, hoping they'd dissolve on their own. I sat across from her. You've been lying to me for months, I said. Don't insult us both by pretending this is about therapy. Her jaw tightened. You don't know everything. I know enough. She stood, walked into the living room, and grabbed her purse. Before walking out the door, she said something I'll never forget. You used to be kind. And with that, she was gone. She said it like a wound, like I was the one who'd broken something sacred. But I knew better. I hadn't changed, I just stopped pretending. That weekend, she didn't come home. She didn't text, didn't call. Not until Sunday night, when I got a short message. I need space. Don't wait up. That was the moment I realized she was out of moves. The manipulation hadn't worked. The guilt hadn't stuck. The story she told her friends didn't change the one I already knew. So now she was trying absence, letting the silence speak. But she didn't realize that I'd already made peace with the silence. I'd been living in it for months. It wasn't a threat anymore. It was relief.